Joining us now in a Kelly File exclusive, Congressman Trey Gowdy, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, member of the House Oversight Committee, and the former chair of the Select Committee on Benghazi. Great to see you tonight, sir. Thank you for being with us. Your reaction now to this news about the FBI.
Well, I think Director Comey did the right thing in supplementing his testimony. Remember, Megyn, Commissioner Koskinen is in trouble because he did not take the step of supplementing his congressional testimony. Yeah, but beyond that, his letter is pretty cryptic. It's an unrelated investigation. He has not confirmed that it's the Anthony Weiner sexting investigation, and he hasn't even confirmed yet that the information is significant. So I appreciate the fact that he updated Congress, but other than that, I'm going to let the Bureau do their job.
How extraordinary is this?
Well, it's pretty extraordinary because Secretary Clinton had an extraordinary email arrangement with herself, and she is the author of her own destiny. Everything that's happened since then is the natural, probable consequence of deciding you're going to have a rogue email system. So I understand she's upset, and I understand she doesn't like the timing, but she need to look no further than herself.
How is it possible, in your view, as a former prosecutor, that Huma Abedin, who was under subpoena, would not have produced her home computer or directed the FBI to that device as relevant when they were seeking all of her documents?
Well, you can even go back beyond that. Remember, the State Department allegedly went back to all of the top aides, the seventh floor principals at the State Department, to try to recreate the record. They missed it as well. I'm reluctant to speculate because I don't like to do that as a former prosecutor, but it may have been emails that were deleted. Remember, Secretary Clinton said she turned over all work-related emails. We now know that thousands were deleted, and for all I know, this tranche may have been among those that were deleted, and therefore the Bureau did not have access to them originally.
Because you cannot get any closer to Hillary Clinton than Huma Abedin. I mean, you can't, like, that's her, it's her right-hand person, it's her closest aide, they're like family. I mean, this would be one of the first places you would look to when you were turned on to the fact that there was a secret server to find the relevant documents. And it's inconceivable to me that the FBI did not ask her for it, and if she knowingly withheld the disclosure of this device or failed to search it, there are all sorts of issues there. What's going to happen next? Because you and I both know this thing doesn't get resolved in 11 days. Does Comey need to come out and say more about it, as Hillary is demanding? And if he doesn't, what happens over the next 11 days?
Well, she's welcome to tell us what would be on that computer. I mean, Director Comey's not the only person who would know what's on Anthony Weiner's computer. I mean, Secretary Clinton's welcome to hold a press conference tomorrow and say, you know, it may be this, because Huma and I discussed this. So he cannot confirm or deny the existence of an investigation. That's DOJ rules, and Secretary Clinton knows he cannot produce the information in the middle of an investigation. So it's a little bit, to me, Megyn, I mean, it's just the same person who said I neither sent nor received classified information. It's the same person who said I turned over all my work-related emails. I only had one device. My lawyers went through everything. That's the same person calling that now wants all of this public disclosure. The same person who went to great lengths to make sure that these emails were private now all of a sudden wants it all made public. It's just too rich.
She denied it. I mean, she dodged it tonight when she was asked, have you spoken with Huma? And I mean, you know how it is. I have a right-hand woman here, too. And if my right-hand person, my assistant, found herself in this position, and because of my decisions, I'd say, hey, Abby, what the hell is on your computer? And then I come out and explain, because there's only 11 days to the election. I mean, this is a dodge. Hillary, you raise a good point. Hillary and Huma are in charge of that information, and they do know, at least her right-hand person knows what was on her home computer, and they can't just point to Comey saying, you need to disclose more. I'll give you the final word, sir.
Well, I mean, it's easy to ask people you know cannot disclose things to do so. I mean, that makes her look transparent. But if it's a day that ends in Y, you can rest assured she's talked to Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills. She knows exactly what is on those computers, just like her lawyers know what was deleted from the Platte River Network. And if she's dying for us to know what she and Huma Abedin were doing, on Anthony Weiner's computer, she's welcome to tell us.
Just tell us. Congressman Trey Gowdy, great to see you.
Yes, ma'am, you too.
Hillary Clinton's email investigation is reopened, and just moments ago, we received a new statement from John Podesta, the chairman of her campaign for presidency, and it reads as follows. Upon completing this investigation more than 3 months ago, FBI Director Comey declared no reasonable prosecutor would move forward with a case like this and added that it was not even a close call. In the months since, Donald Trump and his Republican allies have been baselessly second-guessing the FBI in both public and private, browbeating the career officials there to revisit their conclusion in a desperate attempt to harm Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Podesta goes on, FBI Director Comey should immediately provide the American public with more information than is contained in this letter he sent to 8 Republican committee chairmen. Already, we have seen characterizations that the FBI is reopening an investigation, but Comey's words do not match that characterization. Director Comey's letter refers to emails that have come to light in an unrelated case, but we have no idea what those emails are, and the director himself notes they may not even be significant. He goes on, it is extraordinary that we would see something like this just 11 days from a presidential election. The director owes it to the American people to immediately provide the full details of what he's now examining. We are confident this will not produce any conclusions different from the one the FBI reached in July. The full text of that is being placed at foxnews.com where you can read it. Carl Cameron, live Cedar Rapids, Iowa. What's the thinking about how this really could upend things, Carl?
Well, it's yet to be seen. Certainly from the Trump campaign's perspective, they think this is manna from heaven, a gift. And obviously, when you put it into the context of the last 10 days of this campaign and marry it with the spike in Obamacare premiums and the endless streams of WikiLeaks hacked Podesta emails, it certainly is a potent additional attack for Trump to add to his closing argument. The New York Times and others reporting now that this was related to the Anthony Weiner investigation and that both he and his wife, Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's top aide, and their devices were part of a separate investigation, suggests that that might have something to do with it. But it's very interesting to hear the Clinton campaign say, bring it on, show us what you got. That is, in fact, what Jason Chaffetz, the chairman of the House Government Oversight Committee, said earlier today. It's what Mike Pence said earlier today, that the FBI director should immediately explain what it is that they found so that the American people can know before the election. Because, for all intents and purposes, an investigation of this kind isn't going to get finished in the next 11 days, and the voters have a right to know. For the Republicans to be making that demand makes sense. They're looking and they think they smell blood. For the Democrats to make that demand suggests that they may have an idea of what was on Huma Abedin and or Anthony Weiner's devices that are apparently part of this investigation. And it's fairly difficult to imagine how Anthony Weiner might have had any classified information on it unless he got it from his wife. And since Huma Abedin and Hillary Clinton are so close, and as Jennifer was reporting, they were seated next to each other today on the plane, you can bet that the staffer got grilled by the candidate about what possible risk there could be in any of her old devices and the potential presence of national security information. Even if this were to turn out to be a nothing burger, Shep, it is not going to be that way until the election. The Trump campaign is going to pound this. Republicans are going to pound this, and Democrats are definitely on defense. Hillary Clinton's lead was shrinking. It always does when we get to the last 10 or 15 days. The polls always get tighter. Pollsters get much more cautious. So this is a huge development. When it's resolved and how it's resolved will be after Election Day. Whether it affects the resolution of Election Day, we'll know in 11 days.
Wow. These calls for the release of whatever information they have might make sense on the surface, but Carl, as you well know, this is a serious criminal investigation that, if found guilty, could leave Anthony Weiner in prison for many years. That's not the sort of investigation about which you can make knowledge public, because it's all involved in that investigation. To do so would itself be a crime, depending on how closely related it is to that case. So they really are kind of stuck here.
But Comey could, the FBI director, could be a little bit more clear. That was a pretty oblique and opaque, I should say, announcement that he made. And the word out of the Justice Department and out of some in the FBI is that this may not be the kind of catastrophic wound and injury to Hillary Clinton that Republicans would hope for. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump can't turn it into one, however. This is politics. This is not a Justice Department investigation or an FBI investigation. This is an American election. And with the Republican and Democratic candidates pounding them one another with insults far more than policies and offering for the taxpayers, the way it's adjudicated will be vastly different from the way things work at the FBI and the Justice Department.
Yeah, there's no doubt there. Catherine, stay with us, Carl.
I have absolute confidence that everything that could be in any way connected to work is now in the possession of the State Department.
Or not. That was former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton defending her use of a private email address and private server when she was America's top diplomat. Mrs. Clinton insisted that her lawyers had filtered through more than 60,000 emails and turned over each and every document that was relevant to the business of the State Department. However, today, some, including the New York Times, raising new questions about Mrs. Clinton's claims after a Clinton insider named Sidney Blumenthal is called before Congress and turns over an additional 120 pages of previously undisclosed emails. How did that happen? Republican Congressman of South Carolina Trey Gowdy is chairman of the Benghazi Select Committee, whose investigators uncovered these emails. Mr. Chairman, good of you to be here tonight. And so you get this guy Sidney Blumenthal in for a deposition today, and last night, miraculously, you get emails of Hillary Clinton's that pertain to Benghazi and Libya.
Yes, ma'am. These are emails that would clearly be relevant to either a letter request or a subpoena. What I cannot tell you, Megyn, is whether Secretary Clinton failed to turn these documents over to the State Department or whether the State Department failed to turn them over to our committee. I can just tell you that no previous committee, including our committee, had ever seen these emails or memos until late Friday night.
This guy is relevant because she wanted him to work for her at State, and the Obama administration said no. He's a sketchy figure, according to some. They said, no, we don't want him. She used him offline. She used him anyway. And usually those in the decision-making positions, as Politico outlined today, at these major agencies get vetted intelligence. The secretary is supposed to get vetted intelligence, not Sidney shooting her his thoughts off the top of his head from Libya, and he was apparently compromised. Now, are you at liberty to discuss at all what he told you today? Did he confirm any of that?
Sure. He confirmed the fact that he initially wanted to work for the Department of State, and the White House nixed that. And he not only was he providing corroborated, unsubstantiated intelligence to our top diplomat, he was just simply forwarding on intelligence that somebody by the name of Tyler Drumheller was sending him.
Oh.
He didn't know if the sources were legitimate. He didn't know whether or not the information had been corroborated. He was merely a conduit between somebody who may have had a financial interest in Libya and our nation's top diplomat.
She says, I have a lot of friends, and I stay in touch with them. And what's wrong with receiving a little information from a friend?
Well, if that information is as poorly vetted as the information she received from Sidney Blumenthal, that would be a problem. But secondarily, I would tell you this, her other friends are not emailing her about Libya. He is. And secondarily, she used the word unsolicited. Megyn, when these emails are released, I want you to count the number of times she said, keep them coming, this is great, useful information. I don't know what her definition of unsolicited is. But it's very strikingly different from my own.
In the meantime, everybody wants to know when Hillary Clinton is going to appear before your committee and answer questions. Will it be under oath? And if you don't have a date yet, why don't you?
Yes, ma'am, it will be under oath. And in Secretary Clinton's defense, she has been ready to come before our committee since last fall. In our defense, we didn't know about her email arrangement last fall, so that might have been why she was so anxious to come. My condition precedent is very simple. The State Department needs to give me all of the emails that we have requested from the 7th floor principals, including Uma Abedin, Cheryl Mills, Jake Sullivan, Patrick Kennedy. Exactly, because she's been insistent that she's coming once. I have to be equally insistent that that one time be constructive and productive. So as soon as John Kerry gives us the documents that we are entitled to, I will be thrilled to schedule.
Are you still
Secretary
not getting
Clinton.
the emails from her staff? On what basis are they retaining those? On what basis are they withholding them?
The basis that there's nothing I can do to them. If they do not turn them over, other than cut their appropriations, which we have tried to do, both the Senate and the House appropriators, public shame, which doesn't seem to work. But I don't have a police force. I can't send somebody over to the State Department to seize these documents.
It's up to the honor and the ethics of John Kerry.
He's the one person standing between me and Secretary Clinton having our, as she put it, single conversation.
Well, we're looking forward to a second conversation after you have that one here in the Kelly File. Great to see you tonight, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Now, Republican South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, he's a member of the committee uncovering all of these documents, and they have subpoenaed Secretary Kathleen Sebelius for more. Congressman, good to see you tonight. And so, as the president was out there repeatedly with the 1-800 number, he knew that basically was just another way of sending people to the website ultimately.
It's a facade. It's one of several facades, Megyn. And you know, the president already has a Nobel Prize for Peace. I think he's shooting for one in fiction. To send people to the mail instead of the website when you know that you're going in exactly the same queue is a facade. It's a Potemkin village that is calculated to mislead folks and create this appearance that everything is going swimmingly when you know otherwise.
Why can't there just be honesty? Why can't, I mean, we just picked this up with Mark Thiessen. Why can't he just come out and say, I didn't tell you the truth, or I broke a promise? However he wants to phrase it, I broke a critical promise, and millions of Americans are hurting now tonight because of it. And this is what I'm going to do about it. We don't have that. We have, what I said, he said, what we've said was, if you had a policy that didn't change. That's not what he said. And now the thing about, oh, well, you can just call the 1-800 number. Well, that just directs people back to the website.
I could have sworn he said period at the end of that statement, and now he's added a rather lengthy footnote. The answer to your question, Megyn, I've never understood why politicians don't look at their fellow citizens and say, I made a mistake, I need you to forgive me, and it won't happen again. You know, Congress does not enjoy a very good approval rating, but nobody in government does. And part of the reason for that is instead of saying we made a mistake, even we made an intentional misstatement, we need you to forgive us, the response is to evade and to answer questions falsely. And then the worst of all is to assume that the American people are stupid enough to believe the explanation that he came up with today.
I always say I can never understand these politicians who forget about the magic of videotape, where we have it all on camera. I mean, we know what was said. Congressman, we will watch to see what, if anything, you guys get back from Secretary Sebelius, as I know you have a subpoena waiting, and you continue to get more documents by the day. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Well, a stage 4 cancer. South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, the former chairman of the Select Committee on Benghazi. Great to see you, sir. So today you had an interesting day taking a look at some documents that the FBI had prior to you getting a look at them. Did you find anything particularly interesting about these documents that Hillary provided the FBI?
Yes, ma'am. Keep in mind, one notebook were the classified emails that she handled so negligently. The other notebook are the witness interviews, the summaries, what we call 302s. My number one takeaway, Megyn, is there's no reason in the world you could not and should not be able to look at the same witness interviews that I had to go to Washington and look at in a classified setting. You and your viewers should be able to read summaries of these witness interviews. The second takeaway is a lot of the FBI's time and attention was spent debunking and refuting these fantastically false statements that Secretary Clinton made at the inception of this email story. And the third takeaway, remember, Director Comey said that he could not indict, did not have a realistic probability of a successful prosecution on the issue of intent. So I looked to see what witnesses were questioned on the issue of intent, including her. And I didn't see that many questions.
Let's go back to number 2.
Issue.
Let's go back to the second point, which is how much time they had to spend debunking what you say were lies or falsehoods that she told. What do you mean by that?
Oh, even something as seemingly innocuous as us referring to Sidney Blumenthal as her advisor. Remember, she got really upset when we used that term. You'll never guess which term the FBI used when they described Sidney Blumenthal and his relationship to her. He was interviewed. I think you would find very interesting what Colin Powell had to say and juxtapose that with what Clinton supporters have said over the last 48 hours. You go back, the multiple devices, how many phones she had, the very reason she set it up. All of that proved to be fantastically
And I want to
false.
ask you this. So she also, of course, claimed that she never sent or received classified information. We now know that that's not true. I know you thought it might be interesting if the American people could see who sent some of the emails that she received with the classified information. What do you mean by that? Why would that be so interesting?
Well, right now, even Congress can't see the identities of them. They are so classified that even a congressman in a skiff with no telephone, no iPad, no notes, cannot even see who the author or the originator of that email string was. That is how classified that information was that she was handling on a non-secure server. So Sidney Blumenthal is one author. Of course, you know Cheryl Mills and Numa Abedin and Jake Sullivan, but there are even some originators that even members of Congress cannot see the identity of them because of the nature of the information.
But meanwhile, she was saying, I had no idea, no, classified, no, no. Congressman Trey Gowdy, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Today over what he knew or did not know about a gun-running sting gone wrong. In fact, it went so wrong, at least one border agent could be dead as a result. Take a listen to the reaction from the White House yesterday when Jay Carney was asked about a Republican request for a special counsel to investigate this.
There has been one call, and I think it's a biannual call for a special counsel by this particular congressman. Once every 6 months we hear something similar. And the fact is the Attorney General's testimony to both the House and the Senate was consistent and truthful. He said in both March and May of this year that he became aware of the questionable tactics employed in the Fast and Furious operation in early 2011 when ATF agents first raised them publicly.
We're going to talk now with a former U.S. attorney who worked hand in hand with the Justice Department and is now a congressman sitting on the Justice Committee as well as on the Oversight Committee. He is one of those calling for a special counsel to investigate this matter. He is Congressman Trey Gowdy of South Carolina. Congressman, thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Why is a special counsel necessary here?
Well, because people have to have confidence in the Department of Justice, and when your top law enforcement official gives a demonstrably false statement to a committee of Congress, with all due respect to Jay Carney, both answers could not have been correct. If you say in March and May both, I learned a few weeks ago, one of those answers has to be incorrect. He was asked a very direct, unambiguous question by Darrell Issa. He gave a demonstrably false answer. Now, what I can't tell you is whether he had an intent to deceive. So I'm very careful not to use the word perjury. But it was demonstrably false. And we have to have confidence in the institutions of justice, and we have to have confidence in the top law enforcement official in this country. I don't think that's too much to ask.
The Justice Department has come out and essentially said what he knew earlier, what he knew a year earlier before that exchange with Issa, was that Operation Fast and Furious existed. That was mentioned in memos and briefings, but not the specific aspect of the program that was most controversial, which was that guns were being allowed by U.S. ATF agents to go from America down to Mexico. That we were sanctioning that because we had this whole plan of we were going to track them and they were going to bring us to the bad guys. That all went south. We lost the guns. 2,000 guns wind up in the hands of the bad guys, and an American border agent dies. In any event, what they seem to be saying is, yeah, he knew about the operation, but he didn't know about the controversial part. Why do you reject that?
Well, Ms. Kelly, there are memos that mention gun walking specifically by name, and we asked the Department of Justice officials, every now and again they'll send somebody to oversight or judiciary. Usually it's the person with the least amount of knowledge about a particular subject, so we can get a series of I don't knows. But specifically, the phrase gun walking is mentioned in memos that Eric Holder either read or should have read.
And so tell our viewers what that means, because they may not understand the significance of
gun
that.
walking, or the
gun walking.
What is gun walking? Gun walking is when you let guns walk. You know that they are contraband, and that you have a legal right to seize them, either arrest them or seize them with a search warrant, and you let them go. You don't do surveillance on them. You don't put GPS on them. You don't put a tracking device on them. You literally let them walk.
Okay, so let me stop you there, because I want to read the viewers the memo, and then I'm going to bring you back in. So apropos of what the congressman is saying, folks, there is a series of emails back of October of 2010. So this is well before Holder says that he knew about Operation Fast and Furious and the controversial stuff. The Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the DOJ's criminal division
is corresponding with the acting chief of the DOJ's Organized Crime and Gang Section. And one of them writes to the other, "It's not going to be any big surprise that a bunch of U.S. guns are being used in Mexico, so I'm not sure how much grief we get for, quote, guns walking. It may be more like, finally, they're going after people who sent guns down there." So, Congressman, your point is that this is October 2010, where high-level DOJ officials are talking about guns walking, and Holder is trying to tell the U.S. Congress that he only found out about Operation Fast and Furious, the controversial parts, back in April or May of 2011. So why are his top deputies talking about guns walking in October of 2010?
And also, Ms. Kelly, keep in mind, in December of 2010, a Border Patrol agent named Brian Terry was murdered. So if the United States Department of Justice and the Attorney General is not being briefed on the fact that a Border Patrol agent has been murdered and guns found at the crime scene may have been part of Fast and Furious, here are his two options. He's either so disengaged from his job that he needs to go find another one, or he gave demonstrably false testimony to a committee of Congress. Neither outcome is particularly good for Attorney General Holder.
Need a quick answer on this. What happens if you do get a special counsel? Because some in Congress are saying that's only going to slow things down on the congressional investigation.
It could, but you also get access to a grand jury. You have all of the accoutrements of a federal investigation. You have the imprimatur of the United States law enforcement, either a retired federal judge or a career prosecutor, and you kind of depoliticize it, which, you know, Ms. Kelly, I'm a former prosecutor. I take no delight in criticizing the Department of Justice, but if we don't have confidence in the Department of Justice and our top law enforcement officer, we're not going to make it as a republic. So I'll sacrifice the political benefit so the American people